Hercules Week Day 2, hopefully with 20% fewer camera issues. As you can probably guess by now, yeah, we are going in the order that TFC Toys released these figures, because next up, Heavy Labor. A toy either named because he is a rough, gruff, heavy-built, physical labor bot, or he's expecting quintuplets. You decide. As you can see here, the lime green and purple have now given the color scheme to a heavy-duty dump truck. The kind, well, I should say this, that Exgraver also had this feature where he's not really designed after the kind you'd see roadside. You know, not the kind just digging out a vacant lot. These are the heavy-duty mining equipment variety. Heavy machines for digging out tons and tons of material. I like that. It feels like, well, it feels right. These things should be so big and hefty in both modes. You can see here he does have some great paint apps to him in the front. A lot of the little lights have been painted. The entire grille has been painted that very dark gray, just bordering on black there. Even a few little details breaking up that purple bumper. Little bitty lights. Even individually colored lights here at the bottom. I really like that. They went through the trouble of painting them different colors. You can also see a little bit of extra color right here on the side, as well as this, which the clever eye will notice is code for Hercules. Someone thought that was clever. Oh well, it's simple, but it does add to the design, and it helps break up the green. The only other thing breaking up the green here in the back is the exposed hinges that will come into play for the transformation. Little awkward, but okay. You've got some extra detail down here too. They did paint the hubs for the wheels, and there's a little bit of extra detailing there on the side. I'm not quite sure what that is. Might just be for the robot mode. Down here you can see exposed plugs that will come into play when we combine all of these things together at the end of the week. Until then, they just kind of serve to look odd in the back of the vehicle mode. He is looking very beefy, though he does still have a few problems the same way Exgraver did, like big hinge exposed there. That's a minor one. The major one is here in the bed of the dump truck, where again we have very easily seen robot mode fists. Well, I guess there's no avoiding it since it's using the truck bed as its arms, so, you know, it's a minor thing, but it is worth pointing out. Also worth pointing out, the dump truck bed cannot dump. It's just not hinged that way, so unfortunately, not going to happen. A few flaws aside, I do really dig this vehicle. I mean, it's big, hefty, big brick of green plastic, and I accused Exgraver of being a big block of green plastic. It has nothing on this guy. Also point out, cab section also got some extra paint apps there on the top. They didn't need to, but they did. This is why I love TFC Toys. A lot of attention to detail. Now, like Exgraver, we can arm him. In this case, he gets this, which is something of a heavy barrel gun, like a grenade launcher, I guess. Now, what they want you to do, along with the translucent red duplicate, is mount them here on the sides where they've given you convenient peg holes. This is actually a little bit tough on the purple one because, well, the handle isn't molded into a solid circle. This is what they want you to do, and you can point them straight up for exhaust. I, however, have other plans, and there you can see it's kind of a oval shaped. It's flat on the sides. Here, you can store them away. You can give the dump trucks something to do, because as long as those exposed fists are there, we might as well use them. And you can do that just to give the dump truck a little bit of something to carry. I, on the other hand, prefer to turn them around this way, because personally, I've never seen a rocket-propelled jet dump truck. I can have dreams too, don't laugh. I don't know, it's just a goofy thing I like to do. It's a toy, I'm going to play with it however I want. I'm going to use my imagination. More likely, you're just going to stick them on the side, which is fine if you want to be boring. But whatever, they do still look okay on the side. As hefty as this vehicle looks, adding twin grenade launchers is not going to hurt anything. So, vehicle mode aside, time for robot. In robot mode, heavy labor is a big, wide-set, very heavy-looking beast of a robot. So I guess we can rule out the pregnancy theory. Oh well. Unlike Exgraver, who left little to the imagination in vehicle mode as to how his robot mode would come together, there is quite a bit of surprise here in all the detailings that heavy labor enjoys. For starters, we had a lot more little bit of panel forming than we did before, especially here to form his midsection. And we do have a backpack composed of what's left of his dump truck bed. That's pretty much all forgivable. It's pretty minor stuff, and I will give TFC Toys credit. They did try their best to actually work those extra parts into the design a little bit. Here, we'll go into the details and show you exactly what I'm talking about. The insides of the grooves here on these panels are painted. This gives his shoulders a little bit more color and definition rather than just being panels folded up and covering up the front of them. It's a very nice little touch that, well, definitely adds to it a little bit. So they turn a negative into a positive, good for them. A little bit of purple here on the elbow gives it a little bit more definition. All those little details we saw in the vehicle mode now coming out. You can see that the bumper is flipped down, revealing more abdomen pipes and a lot more silver here. I'll show you the head now. The head looking very slick. Very simple with the visor and the mouthpiece. This huge head thing. And of course, again, the translucent red creates a gorgeous light piping effect. Even in dim light with no light behind him, you can see his visor. That's something worth mentioning, because it is very hard to accomplish that kind of light piping level. You can also see through the legs, some gearing, got some paint jobs. You can also see a lot of inner workings here. Hydraulics. Some extra gears in the knees. A lot of little details have been painted to give him some character. Though not so much in the front, unfortunately. It does have this piece painted silver, just to break up the purple a little bit. So, yeah. All in all, I can't really complain. They did incorporate the best part of his paint apps into his robot mode chest, so of course, he does have a lot of detail there. Though I hate to keep pointing out unoriginality, but this is nothing new, as demonstrated by this official Transformer release, which in no way has anything to do with TFC Toys' heavy labor. You can see they both had the same idea, using the front of the dump truck for the chest, though being an old school and much smaller dump truck, his does point out forward a lot farther. And while the legs are vastly different, you can see they did have a few of the same design ideas. There's no accounting for originality anymore. As long as I got him off to the side, let me demonstrate by comparing him to Exgraver. He is much wider set and much heavier looking than his previous brethren. He is probably the oddball out of the entire batch. The long haul I showed you has to be the midsection of Devastator. The same is true for heavy labor here and Hercules. And rather than have a separate piece that connects him to the legs, he has to do it all on his own, which means he is much wider set, he is heavier built to support the extra weight and engineering, and this is the result. Not that that's a bad thing. I actually do like how much extra character this gives him, and how much different it makes him from the rest of the set. Speaking of engineering, let's get into the articulation. His head does rotate all the way around. Nice. Ball joints on the shoulders, and you can still use the transformation hinge if that has any effect on any pose you want. Biceps rotate just above the elbow. Elbows have a lot of bend to them. Very nice to see. No wrist swivel on this one. He does have a waist joint. Very nice to see. We'll get back to the next part in a second. Knees, okay. No feet this time. They just kind of fold up and down. If you can make them work for you, that's good. The hips are an issue. Now he does have a swivel there, just below the hip. That's nice. And he does have very tight, very clicky hinges. That'll be good for combined mode. This is the part we take issue with, is these hinges. Now, on the early release heavy labors, those gears were a huge problem, because apparently the little mechanism inside needs a lot of grease in order to actually not strip itself bare. And unfortunately, that didn't happen on the early releases. Now, mine seems to be a second release because it's absolutely fine. Nothing's really wrong with it. However, if you did get an early one, fear not, because all you need to do is get yourself a neck breaker from this series. And he will come with one of these, a replacement pelvis piece that allows you to swap out the bad ones for a fully working one. That's great if you need it. Thankfully, I don't, so far. And on newer releases, you shouldn't have any need for it at all. However, if you do get an older one, I would recommend being very careful upon opening because there are tight springs in there and you don't want them to go flying. You think it's bad when you fire off a missile when you're not paying attention? Try losing a spring. And of course, we do still have the big heavy cannon weapons here. Though in this mode they look distinctly smaller, looking more like very, very heavy-duty pistols instead. I don't know, in this mode the simple design really doesn't do them any favors, unfortunately. I mean, they are just big cylinders with handles. I wish a little bit more character had gone into them, though there is a reason for them to look this way as well. Ah well, it's still nice. I mean, again, I can hardly complain about accessories. Compared to the other Hercules figures, heavy labor here is admittedly limited. While his wide and powerful looking build do give him a very big distinction among the other Hercules robots, I can't ignore the fact that he's one of the few that have no gimmick in vehicle mode. And his accessory count compared to the others is quite limited, not only in number, but also in playability factor. Not to say he's a bad toy, he's absolutely great on an engineering and articulation level. He is an outstanding figure. However, when you're paying the kind of price these things are usually retailing for, you really do want him to do as much as possible. And following after a very versatile Exgraver, heavy labor just unfortunately on his own leaves a little bit to be desired. In the end, I feel like he sacrifices the most for the final combined mode we will see at the end of the week. And we need to get there as soon as possible, because I'm as eager to get these guys together as the rest of you are to see it. But of course, we've still got 4 robots to get through, so all we can do is wait for Wednesday and march on.